Hi. Thank you for doing this rather than that Phillies game. Wow, good for you. So yeah, one of my first memories of my father being a paranormal investigator was opening up a black doctor's bag, and he'd put in his rosary beads, his camera, and a Poland spring bottles he'd written in Sharpie, like holy water on it, and he'd have his Exorcist soundtrack, and he'd go off and take pictures. Now, your context of what paranormal investigation is through like the Sci-Fi Channel and a bunch of guys in affliction t-shirts, like going like, one guy would pass gas and the other would be like, bro, did you hear that? Like it's been romanticized. It's The Conjuring, right? Like we have this context of that. In the 80s, in the 90s, when he was doing this, he was like one of the first guys that did it. So all you had to be was a guy who was nervous in cemeteries with a camera and a fishing vest full of film, and that was what he did. And so it's not that cool. If anything, it's boring and scary. And like, I remember the first time he prayed the rosary over my closet door because I heard a noise. Like, when you're a kid and your dad's a paranormal investigator, the boogeyman becomes tangible. You know what I mean? So it's not a good childhood. And it's a specific trauma that no one can help you with. There's not a psychiatrist who's been there. There's never been studies of this. You're alone. And I'm going to tell you the story about what happened to me in New York 7 years ago. So I just moved to New York. I had just broken up with my girlfriend. The girlfriend was the attachment to the apartment that I was in. I was fucked. I had to find an apartment very quickly after this breakup. And, you know, going through Craigslist and trying to find a place when you're like a guy with no friends in their 30s in New York City was impossible. So like at first I was like, I make this much money, I'm a very mature person. Over time it became, I occupy this much liquid volume, I'll sleep under the couch, I'll pay more than I need to, please help me. And finally, I got a person answering me for an ad for an apartment in Bushwick. And she said that she had this treehouse-style apartment that she could put me into. Very Bushwick, right? So her and I are talking, and she's like, what do you do? And I said, I do stand-up comedy, I do like storytelling. She goes, I do storytelling too. I was like, really? I was like, what kind of topics do you get into? And she said, it's so weird. You know, my father was a paranormal investigator in the 80s. Don't skip ahead. My father was a paranormal investigator in the 80s, and it's like, so a lot of my stories, I'm trying to work it out right now. And I'm like, so weird, me too. So we gotta meet. We have to meet, right? We have to meet. I have to see this place. I have to talk to this one person with a specific trauma. So I go to Bushwick, and the first thing that sucks about her opening the door is she's absolutely beautiful. And I can't make eye contact with beautiful people. I'm very nervous about this whole thing because we have this shared traumatic experience, and she's also hot. So this is a problem. So she shows me the apartment. It's exactly what I described. It's the cool guy apartment. Like, she had a shopping cart with a mannequin torso in it. It was like a fucking very artist's apartment. It's really cool. But after we toured the apartment, she immediately brought out this like bong apparatus that looked like the Crystal Kingdom from The Little Mermaid, and we just started smoking so much pot and talking about where we're from. So she's telling me her ghost stories, and after I told her, she told me ghost stories about Carl Tanzler, who was this X-ray technician in Florida who had visions of being in love with a woman, finally met her during this X-ray thing. Sorry, I know I'm being weird. It's so hard to do 5 minutes with this fucking story. So what ends up happening is that, like, she tells me all these ghost stories from Florida, and it's the hottest shit I've ever heard in my life. You know what I mean? Like, you could talk about what college experiences were like and going to summers in Vermont, but let's get to the specific trauma. Oh my God. So this is so hot. And the apartment showing turns into us hanging out for longer than that. We go all over Brooklyn. We go to a bar where it's specifically just Nintendo consoles. And we just talked, and we just shared the traumatic experience. We go back to her apartment. She goes, I can't rent you this apartment. And I went, why not? And she went, do you not perceive it? And she unzipped the back of her dress. Yes! This is like a baseball card moment. This is on my statistics of being the best night ever. I have fucking killed it. We do sex stuff. You know, we don't need to talk about that, but we do sex stuff, and it was great sex stuff. did great sex stuff. And then I'm in this afterglow, and I wake up the next morning in this afterglow, and I'm constructing the screenplay of our love of life a whole time in my head. And I wake up, and she's sitting on the edge of the bed, shaking, holding a cigarette and a crystal on the end of a chain. And I went, "What's wrong?" And she went, "Do you not feel the evil presence in my apartment right now?" Was the sex that bad? I watched a woman burn sage because we had sex in the apartment. The end of the story, the moral of the story, if you have to really know about it, is because just because you share the same trauma means nothing. Now, those of you that have experienced the paranormal or not, it's not your problem, okay? Like, as far as the paranormal is concerned, you only have so much RAM as a human being to fucking process this, so just do your life. I went through therapy, she didn't. So at the end of the day, like, I guess she was haunted and I wasn't anymore. Anyway, thanks, guys.